Daisuke's journey, from loss to enlightenment. In a small village surrounded by mountains, there lived a young man named Daisuke. His life had been marked by routine, working at his family's shop, caring for his ailing mother, and dreaming of something he couldn't quite define. Although he always felt a void within him, he never stopped to explore its cause. Everything changed, however, when his mother passed away suddenly. The house that had once been full of life fell silent, and with the silence came a sense of loss that pushed Daisuke to the brink of despair. Days turned into weeks, and Daisuke began to feel trapped in a cycle of sadness and monotony. Every corner of the house reminded him of his mother. The aroma of the tea she used to prepare, the rocking chair by the window, and the small plants she cared for so tenderly. Unable to bear the weight of these memories, he started to wander aimlessly through the hills nearby, searching for relief from his grief. One day, while walking along a path lined with blossoming cherry trees, he encountered an old man resting under one of the trees. The man wore a simple robe and seemed completely detached from the outside world. For reasons he couldn't explain, Daisuke shared his story with the old man. Talking to him was like opening a floodgate he had kept shut for far too long. He spoke of his mother, his emptiness, and his desire to find something that would give his life meaning. The old man listened in silence, nodding occasionally. When Daisuke had finished, the man said, "Seek out Master Genji at the Monastery of the Dawn. There you will find what you need." Before Daisuke could reply, the old man stood and continued on his way, disappearing among the trees. Intrigued by his words, Daisuke decided to follow his advice. The encounter with the master. Daisuke left his village behind with a mix of uncertainty and hope. The thought of leaving everything he knew terrified him, but something about the old man's words resonated deeply within him. After days of walking through steep trails and sleeping under the stars, he arrived at a mist-covered valley where the Monastery of the Dawn stood. The place was simple, with wooden buildings surrounded by rock gardens and tranquil ponds. The serenity of the surroundings sharply contrasted with the chaos Daisuke felt within himself. Upon entering, he was greeted by a young monk who led him to Master Genji. The master was an elderly man with hair as white as snow and a gaze that seemed to pierce through one's soul. His presence radiated a calmness that made Daisuke feel small and insignificant. "What are you searching for?" asked Genji softly yet firmly. Confused, Daisuke replied, "I'm not sure. I only know that something is missing." Genji nodded slowly. "Then start with the basics. Here we do not seek answers but the path to them. From today you will be an apprentice. But remember, enlightenment is not something you find. It is something you live." The master assigned him a small room alongside other apprentices and explained the monastery's rules. Days began before dawn with silent meditation sessions, followed by daily tasks such as tending the gardens, preparing meals, and cleaning the halls. There was no time for distractions. Every activity was done with complete mindfulness. The challenges. First, Daisuke felt lost. The tasks he was assigned seemed insignificant, and the long hours of meditation filled him with impatience. His mind constantly wandered, reminding him of his loss and feeding his frustration. He had hoped for profound teachings or words of wisdom that would transform his life. Instead, all he received were instructions for mundane chores. One day, while sweeping the monastery's courtyard, his frustration boiled over. "This is pointless," he shouted, dropping the broom. "I came here to understand my life, not to clean gardens." Genji, sitting under a nearby tree, approached him with a smile. "Do you think sweeping is meaningless? Every leaf you gather is a thought you let go of. Enlightenment is not found in the extraordinary but in the ordinary." Although Daisuke did not fully understand the master's words, he chose to persist. Over time, he began to notice small changes. Tasks that once seemed tedious became opportunities to observe himself. He learned to listen to the wind rustling through the trees, feel the cool stone beneath his feet, and focus on each breath he took. One afternoon, as he tended the garden, he realized the flowers never rushed to bloom. They simply existed, trusting the sun and rain to nurture them. This thought stayed with him for days, helping him accept that growth couldn't be forced, it happened naturally. The turning point. After several months, Genji asked Daisuke to climb the highest mountain nearby and wait for the sunrise. "Do not leave until you understand what you need to know," he said. Daisuke set out at dusk, carrying only a blanket and an oil lamp. The climb was arduous, and the cold night air seeped into his bones. As he waited at the summit, he faced an avalanche of thoughts. Memories of happy times with his mother, regrets that haunted him, and fears he had long buried. As the darkness enveloped him, he felt as though he were confronting his own insignificance. He was a tiny being in a vast universe, and that realization filled him with despair. But just as he thought he could bear no more, the horizon began to glow. The first rays of sunlight bathed the mountain, filling the sky with colors that seemed dreamlike. In that moment, something shifted within him. He understood that life was not something to control or fully comprehend. It was something to simply live with acceptance and gratitude. There was no need to seek answers because they were present in every moment. Daisuke returned to the monastery at dawn, exhausted but at peace. Genji was waiting at the entrance. "Now you understand," the master said. "I don't understand with words, but I feel it," Daisuke replied. From that day on, Daisuke continued his studies, but with a new perspective. He no longer sought answers, knowing they were in every moment he experienced. When he eventually left the monastery and returned to his village, he was no longer the same man who had left. He carried with him a serenity that transformed everything he touched. In his shop, on the hills where he used to wander, and in the small encounters with his community, Daisuke lived each day as an expression of enlightenment. He understood that it was not a destination but a journey, taken step by step, breath by breath. Over the years, Daisuke became a respected figure in his community, not because he sought recognition, but because his presence brought peace to those around him. People came to him for advice, and though he rarely offered direct answers, his simple words and example spoke volumes. In the simplicity of his daily life, Daisuke continued to walk the path of enlightenment, fully aware that each day was an opportunity to delve deeper into the mystery of existence.